Ever get that feeling that there's maybe another gear you haven't quite clicked into yet?
Hmm.
That a more intentional, maybe more alive version of you is just right there, sort of over the horizon.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way sometimes.
Well, we've been digging deep into a really interesting collection of source materials.
Okay.
These are firsthand accounts, reflections from people who've been immersed in intensive personal growth experiences.
Ah, so real experience.
Exactly. Think of it as getting a kind of backstage pass to what really fuels, profound individual change.
Right. And what we have here is it's a fascinating look at the core elements that seem to drive transformation.
Mm.
What helps it stick, maybe,
Hmm.
and the insights from those who actually guide others through it.
Okay.
So our mission today really is to unpack these key learnings, those genuine moments,
Right.
things that might offer you some, I guess, practical wisdom for shaping a more transformed life,
Hmm.
a more fulfilling one, starting today even.
Okay, so let's dive right in then. One of the things that immediately struck me was this consistent emphasis
Ah,
on certain fundamental human qualities in the people who facilitate change, I mean.
like what?
Well, we're talking about things like deep passion, genuine kindness,
Okay.
and a real hunger for authentic connection.
Right. That makes sense.
The source has even noted a clear preference for, meaningful conversations over just superficial small talk.
Yeah, I saw that too.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, if this genuine human connection isn't sort of a non-negotiable foundation for any real personal evolution,
Interesting way to put it. Foundational.
both for the person leading it and the person, going through the transformation.
And what's fascinating here is how that genuine connection seems to act as a catalyst.
Okay, yeah.
Our sources give examples of these really intimate sort of shared moments,
Uh-huh.
leading to incredibly profound personal realizations. Just boom.
Like what kind of moments?
Well, one instance that stood out was someone discovering a newfound desire for parenthood,
Oh, wow.
and that sparked this huge shift in their life, their relationships, everything.
Great.
It highlights that these pivotal moments aren't always these, grand intellectual leaps.
Yeah.
They often just arise from unexpected human connections, shared experiences, things that touch us on a really fundamental level.
Yeah, it's less about sitting alone thinking and more about those moments that just resonate, because there's another person involved.
Exactly, the human element.
And that kind of brings us to this crucial aspect of consciously shaping our future, doesn't it?
Mm,
This deep dive into our core values and maybe the unwritten rules we live by.
yeah, the internal stuff.
It seems like a recurring theme in these experiences is people hitting a wall, feeling almost constricted.
Right, stuck.
Yeah, by their own internal framework. But the sources suggest that even deep into a process like this, real breakthroughs are still possible.
Absolutely. It's not like you get stuck forever.
It's about actively reshaping that internal landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about core values, we mean those fundamental principles that truly guide your decisions, right? Give life meaning.
And this raises, I think, an important point about the active role of introspection.
Okay.
It's not just noticing you feel stuck.
Mm-hmm.
It's really dissecting the beliefs, the assumptions underneath that feeling.
Getting under the hood.
Exactly. The sources really underscore that mindset, how we frame things, our possibilities, is critical.
Yeah.
It determines whether we can overcome those internal hurdles. It's about seeing that the boundaries we feel are often, self-imposed.
Yeah.
Mental constructs.
And this feeds directly into the power of focused intention then.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more.
Well, there's a process described where people identify a really central, life-shaping question for themselves.
Okay, one big question.
Yeah. And then they distill that down into a concise mission statement.
Ah, like a personal mission.
Exactly. And this is presented as a real turning point in transformation, creating a tangible roadmap almost.
A North Star. Yeah, a North Star for your purpose, your objectives. It's moving from feeling adrift to actually navigating with direction.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you can think of that core question and the mission statement as powerful anchors.
Okay. Anchors.
They
Yeah.
provide clarity when things get messy, uncertain,
yeah.
and they're constant reminders of what truly resonates deep down.
Right.
This isn't about just, setting vague wishes. It's carving out a specific path for your life based on those core values we just talked about.
And what keeps us going on that path? What sustains us?
Good question.
Well, according to our sources, a key driver seems to be growth itself.
process.
Yeah, the idea put forward is that genuine fulfillment isn't about reaching some static endpoint like, okay, I'm done now.
Right, not a destination.
No, it's about the continuous process of learning, evolving, expanding our horizons in different parts of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Stagnation, the sources suggest, that leads to boredom, dissatisfaction.
Makes sense.
Whereas active engagement in personal development actually cultivates happiness. It's a strong push to define what an extraordinary life looks like for you.
Yeah, for you, not someone else's definition.
Right. And to actively pursue those passions instead of just settling.
Precisely. Growth isn't just about, getting new skills or knowledge. It's broader.
How so?
It's about broadening your perspectives, questioning your assumptions, becoming a more integrated, more realized version of yourself.
Okay.
The sources really imply that this dynamic process is continuous evolution, that's at the very heart of a truly fulfilling life.
But all this internal work, this thinking and feeling, it needs to translate into the real world, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's crucial.
There's a clear emphasis in the sources on the absolute necessity of translating those insights, those decisions,
Yeah.
into tangible, concrete actions.
Yes, the doing.
It's the doing that bridges that gap between intending to change and actually transforming.
Couldn't agree more.
You can have all the epiphanies in the world, but if they don't lead to changes in behavior,
Then what's the point, really? That's the stage of embodying the changes, making them real.
embodying, okay.
It's about making those decisions not just things you agree with intellectually,
Right.
but making them integral parts of your daily lived experience.
Mhm.
The sources talk about moving beyond just understanding something in your head
Mhm.
to actively engaging with it physically,
Mm.
immersing yourself fully in the shift you want.
And it's definitely not a one-time event, is it?
No, not at all. That's a key point.
Lasting change, we learn, demands consistent daily effort.
Daily. That's the word.
It's about weaving those new values, that mission statement, into the fabric of your being. Almost automatic eventually.
Right. Making it second nature.
The sources also point to the huge benefit of community support here.
Ah, yes. The group effect.
Yeah, the idea of strengthening these changes through shared commitment, and they refer to it as deep sensory awareness.
Deep sensory awareness. What do you think they mean by that?
Well, maybe how shared experiences engage more of our senses, creating a deeper, more lasting impact on our commitment because we're in it together, feeling it together.
That makes sense.
This?
The significance of sustained effort really can't be overstated, though.
Yeah.
It's those small, consistent daily practices that solidify the new habits, reinforce the ways we want to be.
Little by little.
And the community aspect, well, it offers both accountability
Right, people notice if you slip.
and encouragement, which can be invaluable, especially that initial, burst of enthusiasm starts to fade a bit.
Yeah, keeps you going. Now, this was a particularly resonant point for me.
Okay.
This idea that our life's mission often just unfolds organically through experiences.
Not necessarily a big bang revelation.
Exactly. Not one sudden flash of insight. The example given was about someone discovering a real knack for connecting with others during a high school speech class.
Oh, okay. Simple start.
Yeah. It wasn't some preordained grand design. It was a teacher believing in them, a sequence of positive experiences, and that illuminated a potential path.
This really highlights the role of being open, doesn't it?
Open how?
Open to serendipity,
Yeah.
to unexpected opportunities. Sometimes our purpose finds us, maybe, rather than us finding it.
I like that.
It's about cultivating a sensitivity to what truly resonates, what we feel a natural pull towards,
Yeah.
and being willing to explore those avenues, even if they seem a bit off our planned course initially.
And speaking of things that can block that exploration, roadblocks, the sources touch upon the lingering impact of past challenges and our brain's tendency towards self-preservation, playing it safe.
Oh yeah, the survival brain kicking in.
Right. And these often show up as limiting beliefs that, maybe without us even realizing it, can sabotage our progress.
Definitely. They run in the background.
So the suggested approach here is that process of introspection, again, revisiting early memories.
Going back.
Yeah. Not to dwell, but to maybe release those old stories, foster some healing, and cultivate a sense of gratitude and present moment vitality. It's almost like decluttering your emotional closet,
Yeah, making space. That deliberate act of revisiting and reframing the past is incredibly powerful.
Reframing.
It lets us understand where our limiting beliefs came from.
Right. The roots.
And then consciously choose new, more empowering perspectives. It's about realizing those past difficulties don't have to dictate our future.
It's fascinating then to think about how these individual transformations create wider ripples.
Yeah, the outward effect.
The sources describe this chain reaction. One person's positive change can cascade, affecting their family, their work.
Their community.
Yeah, their community. There's mention of the power of sharing vulnerability and passion within these collective experiences, too.
That shared vulnerability piece is key.
It really suggests that personal growth isn't just this isolated solo journey.
Absolutely not. Individual transformation has the potential for profound collective impact.
How so?
Well, when individuals operate from a place of greater clarity, purpose, genuine fulfillment, it just naturally influences their interaction.
Right, changes how they show up.
And their contributions to the world around them. That shared vulnerability, it fosters deeper human connections, and it amplifies the potential for positive change on a bigger scale.
And it's not just abstract theory either. We get some really compelling glimpses.
From the participants themselves.
Yeah, into how these principles resonate. Things like people finally finding their authentic voice, self-expression.
That's huge.
Or overcoming that really pervasive fear of being judged by others.
Oh, definitely. A common one.
And even healing and strengthening core family relationships. There's this tangible sense of renewed enthusiasm you can feel. Enthusiasm for a life lived with joy, with conscious choices.
These personal reflections are really powerful, aren't they? Yeah. Concrete evidence of the impact. They move beyond just theory to highlight the very real practical benefits. Stronger relationships, more self-assurance, a revitalized sense of purpose.
So when you boil it all down, what's the core message here? Good question.
It really feels like it boils down to this idea that true, lasting fulfillment isn't found in, chasing superficial goals.
Right. Not the external stuff.
No. But in deeply understanding and engaging with those fundamental human experiences.
Yeah.
It's kind of an invitation, isn't it, to really turn our gaze inward and consider the immense potential for change that lies within each of us.
Exactly. It's about shifting our focus, moving from seeking external validation to nurturing internal growth.
Okay.
From pursuing fleeting pleasures to cultivating that deep, lasting sense of fulfillment that arises from living a life genuinely aligned with our deepest values and passions.
Okay, so as we bring this deep dive to a close, it's clear that intention, consistent action, and that sustained effort, they're really interwoven threads, aren't they?
Absolutely, like a braid. Yeah, of meaningful personal transformation. It's not enough to just think about change.
Nope. Gotta act.
We need to actively define what a truly meaningful life looks like in our own unique terms, and then wholeheartedly commit to that ongoing journey of growth to actually get there.
And that continuous journey, defining meaning, pursuing growth, it requires ongoing self-awareness.
Definitely.
A healthy dose of courage, too.
Yeah, it's not always easy.
And a willingness to gently nudge ourselves beyond the familiar boundaries of our comfort zones.
Okay, so here's maybe a final thought for you to chew on.
Right.
What is one deeply ingrained belief you currently hold about yourself, maybe, or the world?
Okay.
That if you were willing to really question it, could potentially unlock entirely new horizons, new possibilities for your future?
That's a good one. Makes you think.
Or perhaps what's one small, seemingly insignificant daily practice you could consciously commit to starting today?
Just one small thing.
Yeah, that would begin to integrate a change you deeply desire to see in your life.
Powerful questions.
We really encourage you to just keep exploring your own unique path of growth and self-discovery.